to the Passenger Seat Podcast, a podcast designed to fill your passenger seat with chat about classic cars, all recorded from my 1968 Morris Minor Peggy. I'm Becca, and today I'm going to be talking all about the St James's Motoring Spectacle and the motoring art display in London 2025. So those of you who've been listening to the podcast for at least a year will know that last year we found out about the first time in a long time the Royal Automobile Club putting on something before the London to Brighton in the St James area of London with some of the vehicles that would be taking part in the London to Brighton on the following day. It's something that had existed a little while back. I think it used to be called the St James's Motoring Pageant, and they brought it back last year as the St James's Motoring Spectacle, and they basically closed off Pall Mall to have a display of the vehicles that were taking part in the London to Brighton, some other motoring anniversaries and stuff that were happening, and just generally offer a really interesting, really unique free motoring event in the centre of London the day before the London to Brighton, which we thought was fantastic. We had an amazing time there last year, and so it was on our list to go to again this year, and it teed up really well that I was going to have to go and see my sister on the Sunday, so we went down on the Saturday, did it with her again, and then we're able to kind of stay over with her on the Saturday night. So it's a really, really great thing to go to as part of a trip to London. It's not necessarily something that is a whole day's worth of stuff, but it can be really interesting, really unique way of seeing the vehicles, and perhaps a little bit more accessible to many than getting up and seeing the vehicles leaving or very early on the Sunday morning, or getting down to Brighton and seeing them arriving, or trying to find a spot along the route. There are lots of clubs that organise spots to go and meet them as they go past. The Singer Owners Club have done a regular meet on the Sunday of the London to Brighton along the route, and then the people that go along to it go for Sunday lunch afterwards. So it is a really special event that lots of people do things for, but I feel like the St James's Motoring Spectacle does offer quite a lot, and then once you're in London, having enjoyed that, there is lots of other stuff that you can go obviously and do as well. So like I said, it's on Pall Mall, totally free to go to, and takes up basically from one end all the way up to the kind of crossroads, I think what is called Waterloo Place, if you know the area. So it's a decent run of vehicles, and it's kind of split up into lots of different sections. So we set off in the morning, drove down to my sister's house, and then went in on the train with them, and had a little tube journey to get to Pall Mall, and last year we started from kind of Green Park end on the tubes, but this year we started from Charing Cross end, I think it is, because that is closer to kind of the direction that you're kind of supposed to do the cars in. It doesn't make much of a difference, but it allowed us to kind of walk up and back down and see all of the stuff that was on display, and do kind of both sides, but then still be in a good position to then go off for a bit of a wander afterwards. If you're starting at the Waterloo Place, having got the tube to Charing Cross or whatever, like we did, you start off with the London to Brighton Veteran Car Club concourse display, and so The judges for this are a mix of motoring celebrities as well as people who are involved in the Royal Automobile Club and the Veteran Car Club, and they have a range of vehicles that are all on display here, entered into concourse. And it's a real mix of stuff that's been very, very beautifully restored, very beautifully looked after, and also some stuff that is original as is. And so a really interesting mix of stuff to see. And there was a lot of cars here in this section that were in it last year. So there was a lot of kind of familiar cars, but there is so much uniqueness to these cars that you can look around them and really spot so many different bits and pieces. One of my favourite things to do with this event, because you can get so up close to the cars and really enjoy them and explore them, is to take lots of detail photos, because there's so many fantastic little details on these vehicles, be they the horns, the brass work, loads of different stuff. And so I love doing kind of little detail photographs, and if you enjoy that sort of thing, be sure to go and check out what I've uploaded on Instagram and Facebook from the day. And so we enjoyed a walk along there. It then merges into what I think is kind of invited guests of the Royal Automobile Club. And so this is the section where you're going to find Genevieve when she's there. And it's amazing how many people recognise that. I was showing a lady today at work some trousers that I'd made that I was actually wearing for the event. And the best photo I had of those trousers was me next to Genevieve, and as excited as she was for the trousers that I'd made, she was very excited to see Genevieve. She was like, oh my goodness, is that the real car? Does that car still exist? And so for a lady who has nothing really to do with cars, seeing that car about and realising that it still exists, and then finding out that it was just parked on a street in London for you to go and see, was something that really fascinated her, and she had no idea, but she really appreciated the opportunity to see it. So also in this section was a Harrods vehicle, and I found this really fascinating, and I did have a really good chat with the guy that was there with it, because I've started to kind of see a few different Harrods heritage vehicles now. Obviously there was the one that we saw at Caister that had been restored up unusually for Caister, and basically they are starting to really lean into this idea that they were kind of pioneers for electric vehicles being part of their fleet and being part of the way that they operated things in the city, because they've got quite a lot of very early electric vehicles that were doing really important jobs very early on in Harrods history. And so they are starting to lean into that, I think, a little bit, and really start to bring a lot of these vehicles out. The particular vehicle that was there is an electric powered vehicle. They plug it in, they can charge it. He can do around 80 miles on it, which was obviously perfect for what Harrods were needing for pottering about the city back in the day, and also plenty to be able to do the run. And so really interesting, and they did have flyers about the fact that they do have these heritage vehicles, which I found really interesting, and is something I want to look into more, because I think it is kind of fascinating the model of business that they had and the way that they were using vehicles very early on. And so that was a really interesting thing to see. There was also, I think it was in this section, a very jolly, perhaps the most photographed little bonnet mascot of the day, of a little frog who looked, well, Toad probably, who looked very Toad of Toad Hall. And there was basically a queue forming for people to take photos of this little regal looking gentleman sat atop a bonnet of one of these vehicles. You then go through to kind of a heritage skills section where they show about kind of how we're keeping these vehicles going, and also they have a little area there of quizzes and stuff that young children can go about and get involved in as they're going round, which I think is fantastic, because I imagine there will be lots of people who stumble across this and want to get involved and learn about them that aren't necessarily car people, because it is so central in London. But also with my sister and her partner living so close to London now, they actually are signed up to the TfL's newsletter, and it was within that newsletter this week that the event was on, and so there might well be lots of local people who are looking for these free and interesting things to go and do, who were made aware of it through that, which I think is a really fantastic thing to have done. And yeah, it was a really interesting section. They had like Sustain Fuels, who we ran Peggy on for a little bit and did the interview with Guy about. Yeah, lots of interesting stuff like leather conditioners and leather workers and coach painters. They then also had kind of in the next section along the F1 trophy on display, so that you could have your photo with the F1 trophy, which would have been of interest to some people, I'm sure. Quite a queue for it as well, and they had two F1 cars parked alongside it, so really interesting there. And then we move kind of into the anniversary section, which is where they had a celebration of Mercedes and of Renault, who were celebrating anniversaries. And so again, a real mix of cars, of everything they're doing kind of nowadays as well as historically. And I think last year they had like the Fiat in that section there, so it's really a nice mix. Oh, and there was a big Lotus display down that end as well, which was really cool to see. I think it does show a real breadth of stuff, and having that mix of some of the newer, more relatable stuff might be what draws some people in, gets them going to the event and perhaps learning a little bit more about the more historic stuff. Also happening in that area was the Art of Motoring display that is in the Icons Gallery just around the corner in Waterloo Place, and we really enjoyed it last year. Free to enter, some fantastic stuff. It was really great to see a nice mix of stuff, some different artists last year. There was a really cool one that I will put some pictures in on the YouTube of, where the artist had done kind of stacks of toy cars and also really patinaed bonnets, and that I think was a real highlight for me, just because you could really see where with both the bonnets and the toys where humans had interacted with the vehicles. And yeah, I loved it, really enjoyed looking at it and kind of taking some photos, and then I've actually kind of looked into the artist a little bit more afterwards. So another new favourite motoring artist for me. Really good to see Richard Wheatland's stuff in there. I think that was the first time in a long time that I've seen kind of an in-person Richard Wheatland, and I really enjoy his stuff, so very detailed. So after that we kind of headed off into the rest of London and carried on our day of exploring, but we did manage to cover kind of a good couple of hours there. You can get a few little bits and pieces of RAC memorabilia. You can have the opportunity to get a programme of the London to Brighton cars, and that was actually really detailed this year. It seemed that it was aimed a little bit more at people learning a bit more who might not be the every person who is involved in every year of the London to Brighton. Instead, more people could learn a little bit more about what was going on, which I think is really good, because there will be people who were going to that sort of thing, the St James's Motoring Spectacle, and aren't as familiar, and so learning a little bit more about the cars that are involved, the makes and models that are involved, many of whom we don't have anything kind of related to, and are long dead models like a Dirac, which is what Genevieve is. So really cool to see, and lots of stuff to get involved with and enjoy, and it's well worth going along. It's a totally free event, other than obviously getting yourself there and having a day in London, but it's really, really worthwhile, and I feel very much more approachable than perhaps going and being part of the London to Brighton. If you are a little bit more difficult to get up in the morning, you live further away, going for a day event like that can feel a lot more doable than the London to Brighton can, and then it might well get you hooked for going and watching the London to Brighton in some way, shape or form in the following year, or just coming back year and year again to the St James's Motoring Spectacle. It really is on my bucket list though to actually participate in the London to Brighton. That would be fantastic. It's really cool to see so many museums and things like that getting people who are involved in kind of social media and stuff like that to do with YouTube and things to do with cars, getting them involved and getting them driving the vehicles and getting them to take part, because I think it's bringing brand new eyes to the event, and hopefully getting younger and wider audiences interested in these veteran vehicles to help keep the event going and keep the support there for the event, which I think is really important. So that was my experience of the St James's Motoring Spectacle. It's been a really fantastic thing to go along to, and I hope you've enjoyed seeing my photos and stuff of it over on social media if you've been following me over there, and any little clips and stuff that I've included if you've been watching on YouTube. This coming weekend, at the time when this podcast is going out, I will obviously be well into having set up the Women Drivers Social Club stand at the NEC this year. Peggy won't be there, but I will be on the Women Drivers Social Club stand, so you can come along and say hello, and hopefully you have a fantastic show. The Women Drivers Social Club stand, I'm really excited to see it all come together, because I've put a lot of thought and effort into all the preparations for it this year. So hopefully get to see a few friendly faces over the weekend on the stand. We're in Hall 5, not far from the kind of Sporting Bears display, so you hopefully won't be able to miss us, because we've got some big exciting banners to put out for everyone. But that's it for this week. Thank you ever so much for listening. Drive safely and happy motoring.